Hello and welcome. We're the Blue Bot Builders from Brisbane in Queensland. Thank you this morning for taking some time to join us. I'll hand it over and we can all introduce ourselves quickly.
I'm Rylan. This is my second year of FTC.
And I'm Nick. This is my second year as well.
My name's Daniel. I'm one of the mentors.
I'm William. I graduated FTC from Centre Stage.
I'm Andrew, and I graduated from Power Play.
So Andrew's wearing the ref shirt because he's also going to be one of the referees at the South Brisbane regional event coming up soon. So what I thought we'd do this morning is firstly have a bit of a walk through the field. Happy to take questions at any point throughout the session. So if you've got a question, just drop it into the chat. We'll sort of address it. Also behind the scenes here, we've got Eli and Jack from 14380 who are doing an amazing job running all of the productions here. They're sitting there looking at me, and we were looking very pro this morning, so thank you guys for doing that. So if we want to take a bit of a look, get right into it. We've set up a half field on the blue side of the side over here. And what we thought we might do is just sort of do a bit of a talk through what the elements are, how they work, and just do a bit of a walkthrough, and then we can start talking about what the strategy might look like, and some of the first sort of insights that we might take away from the game. So usually what we have is have to kind of get into our heads in the first little instance is the vocabulary of the game. Nick, you want to talk us through some of the main elements of what we've got in front of us?
Alrighty, so for this season, there is one main element and it comes in two different colors. So the main element is a 5-inch diameter ball and it's called the artifact. So the artifact comes in two colors. It comes in this purple and it comes in this green. And the primary objective is to get the artifact into the goal over here where it'll score. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So the artifacts, the main scoring item this year. It's worth noting that if you're an FRC team or an FRC team maybe near you, if you're in the States, these are the same molds and the same dimensions as the 2017 Steamworks fuel. So we were lucky enough to have a few of these around so we could prototype. But I'm sure if there's an FRC team near you, they'd be more than happy to share one of the hundreds of fuel that they would have in stock. So essentially, we've got the artifacts. What do we have to do with the artifacts? We have to take them, and what are we going to do with the artifacts? Rylan, you want to have a quick overview of that?
So basically, we're going to launch the artifacts into the goal over here. After it lands in there, it's going to run through this square here, and then it goes into the classifier where it can score points. Also, if you release this gate, then it'll roll into the secret tunnel where it will score more points. Like that.
Yeah, thanks, Rylan. Yeah, so I guess the important takeaway from that is that the artifact has to run through the square. That's part of the scoring condition. So it's no good. You can't come along, even though there's a bit of a gap here, and you can actually kind of fit the artifacts through the I guess this is churro. If it can fit through that, that's not going to score. It actually has to come through and go through the square into the classifier. And like Rylan pointed out, this is an interesting aspect. We've got the gate here that's going to store these artifacts up, and these become classified artifacts at this point. So that gives you that extra I think it's 3 points for a classified artifact, and 1 point if it were to skip along. We might just show what the skip along looks like if we can fill that up with 3 more artifacts. So at this point, we've got a full classifier, yep, and we'll drop another artifact in, and what we'll see is that it'll skip along the top and it'll come back down, and that would have given you a single point. So the objective, I guess, of the gate now is to what? I mean, can you do anything with that gate in the game, Nick?
So during the game, once your classifier is full of 9 artifacts, you can't score any more that get the 3 points instead of the 1 point. So what your robot can do is your robot can come along, and if they bump into this, it can release the gate, and then if I score another one now, this one now gets classified because the gate's empty. So yeah, that's the gate's primary purpose, to reset the classifier so you can get the 3 points on your artifacts.
Excellent. So that's the strategy, because otherwise, if you filled up that classifier and you're not getting the full benefit of putting more artifacts into the goal. It's just you really want to empty that classifier and reclassify and continue scoring. So I guess there's two parts to the game again this year, like there has been in every other year. There's the autonomous phase, and there's the end game. Let's start talking about the autonomous. I guess at the moment we've configured the autonomous phase setup. So first thing we'll notice, we've got a human player or a loading zone, which is our square over here. We've got 3 artifacts in the corner. Is that the configuration that they're normally in? Yep, perfect. So you can expect them to be in this configuration. Nick, do the spike marks that we've got here with our 3 sets of 3 artifacts, do they get changed around when our randomization happens?
They don't actually. So for this game, if you look over here, well, it'll usually be at the top of the field, but there is this thing. It's called an obelisk, and it's got 3 unique April tags on each side. So at the start of the game, they'll be randomized, and you have to score them. But on the spike marks over this side, so in each game, the configuration will be exactly the same. So the near spike mark will be purple, purple, green. The middle one will be purple, green, purple, and the far one will be green, purple, purple.
Excellent. So then going into the game setup, the teams will set their robots up. They have to be within a launch area, I believe, and they have to be touching a wall. So one can be down here and another one can be down the back there if you want to spread them apart. But conceivably, you can also be, like at the 2 of them kind of next to each other up the back there if that's your strategy. So then I guess what's going to happen is all right, so then we've got these 6 artifacts just here, but they're not really going to start there in the beginning of the game. They would literally be outside of the field, and then teams can take preloads. So maybe what we'll do is we'll move them over into like robot starting positions, and we can pretend they're part of a robot. Now, so we've got 3 purples and no, how many purples? We've got 4 purples and one green. So Nick, do you have to break up the colors evenly across the 2 alliances if you wanted to load them up?
You don't actually. So that's a potential strategy for this game, because if you look at the obelisk, there's always, if you just score them, if you shoot them randomly without even looking, you're guaranteed to get 1 purple correct. So that's a strategy. You could start with all 3, and I don't know, but yeah. Okay. So you're allowed to, you don't have to split them up. That's completely legal.
Perfect. So yeah, don't have to do anything special. Robots can take 3 artifacts for each of the robots. Now, effectively, the game set up, so you can imagine those artifacts are in their robots being preloaded. Teams would then get their controllers set up and they would initialize. That way they're hands off the controllers. Then the game referees are going to they're going to randomize. So randomizing will produce one of those 3 results, and they will change the obelisk to a particular code. Interestingly enough, there's no real specifications around where
recording in progress.
There's no real specifications around where the obelisk has to sit. It's roughly around this area, so it's not going to be precise. Just something to take into consideration when you're setting your field of view. Now, we might just move those. Yeah, let's just move them out, because what we're going to do is imagine we've started our autonomous. Now we've got a robot. William, you can pretend to be a little bit of a robot. You're going to effectively try and you've got your 3 preloads. So yep. So you're going to launch yours. You're going to try very hard to get excellent. Now our other robot has potentially launched from the rear of the field, I guess. And now at this point, those are going to be classified because they're in the classifier. Now there's no reason at this point, we're still in autonomous, there's no reason why a robot can't come along and hit the gate, open the gate up. So in auto still, yep. We're just going through, I know it's a little bit advanced, but that's just to highlight the gameplay mechanics. Yep. Now what we can do is we can Oh, we're going again, are we? Okay. All right, so now motifs. Excellent. All right. Beautiful. All right, so now I guess we're going to say that the end of auto has gone again, so we've kind of done two scoring cycles. What we're looking at now is the pattern, and we're trying to compare the pattern here to what was on the obelisk. So our obelisk at the moment has purple, green, purple. So we're looking for a purple, green, and a purple for each 3 segments. So we've got a purple, green, purple on the first 3. We don't have a purple, green, purple on the second. We've got a green, purple, purple. So we would basically get full points for the first 3, and we would lose essentially 2 points from the 4 points, sorry, from the maximum scoring potential from the second 3. And at that point, the autonomous is going to end, and we're moving into the teleop phase where we're able to cycle quickly. So as I guess an example, we could release the gate and start again so that we could start a full classified cycle. Does the pattern matching matter throughout teleop at all, Nick?
So yes, it does. So during teleop, it doesn't really matter, but at the end of the game, the same as the end of auto, the referee or the scorers will come over and they'll say, oh, you've got this and this in the motif. So the colors don't really matter during teleop, but they matter at the end of teleop. So that's something to keep in mind.
So I guess what we're saying is we're probably going to go as fast as we possibly can, trying to score as many artifacts as we can throughout teleop. And then at some point, getting closer to the end of the game, we're going to start to really care about what those patterns look like, so that we can get a couple of different things. Obviously the maximum score, but there's some other factors which are new this year, which is our ranking points, which we'll get into. Yeah, which we'll get into when we start talking about some of our strategy. So we've talked about just the general scoring mechanics. Sorry, there is another aspect, which is how do we pick up these artifacts? Rylan, you want to kind of fill us in on the 2 main ways that our robot can acquire artifacts this season?
So there's 2 main ways they can pick up an artifact. One of them is you can take it off the field, off the ground, just like a usual game artifact. And then the second way is you can intake via a human player. So a human player can drop an artifact into the robot, and they can score that artifact.
Yeah, perfect. So the human player can interact with the robot, drop the artifacts in, and away they go. Once the robot's loaded up with an artifact, Nick, what can we do about launching? Can we launch anywhere around this field?
So in this game, there's only a few places you can launch, but the areas are quite large. So the largest area you can launch from is in the large launch zone. So if you look on the field, there's a large triangle that covers like up to about halfway in the map. So your robot during the field can launch artifacts into the goal from any area within the large triangle. Or instead of the way you can not launch it is, you see this white line on the front of the goal here. If you have artifacts at the end, artifacts pushing up against that white line, then they score 2. And then the second area where you can launch is the little triangle in the back corner. Now this one may be a bit harder because it's much further away from the goal than you can be within this triangle.
Excellent, thanks, Nick. So yeah, so essentially during teleop, we're going to be rushing around trying to launch as many artifacts as we can into the goal. Then I guess endgame has changed a little this year. It used to be, I think, at the 30-second mark in FTC. Yep. Now it's 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Yep, the last 20 seconds. Basically, at the last 20 seconds, it's the indicator that your robot can do something a little bit differently in terms of its extension, which we'll get into. And we can do something with this section of the field, which is called the base. So the base is essentially a parking zone. There's a couple of different ways that we can go about scoring points in the parking zone. We can do you want to fill me through? Do you want to run through this, Nick? Yeah, excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So with the end game this year, so it's basically in its simplest form a park. So you've got to get your robot to park either partially inside this square, or fully inside this. So partially like this, or you could be fully inside the square. So it partially scores 5, fully scores 10. So this is example robot here. So in this configuration, this robot would only score 5 points because you can see part of it has been supported by the mat outside of the square. But if the robot were to park here, then it would score full points for the park. It would score 10 points for the park. However, you may be thinking, right, there's only one square for each color, but there's 2 robots on an alliance. So for the special condition at the end game is normally throughout the game, you're not allowed to extend outside the 18-inch configuration, but for the last 20 seconds, you're allowed to expand upwards to 38 inches. So what you could do is you could build something to go up and on top of the other robot. Scoring, if you get 2 robots that are fully supported only by the thing inside the base, then you score 10 points for each robot plus 10 bonus points. However, if you look at this robot, it's tried, but you can see its 2 rear, this wheel is actually touching the mat outside of the base, which means this robot, the bottom robot, would score 10 points, and the top robot would only score the 5 points for a partial park. However, if the robot... Yeah, so we can't grab it, but like, you can imagine if the robot was still touching the mat, but both robots were only supported by the area inside the base, then, so like that, they would both score 10 points, and then you'd get a bonus 10 points for having a double park. So
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Nick. So it's interesting to note that this is the same size as your starting configuration. So there shouldn't be any issues for your robot to be able to fully get into that home, into that base. On the line counts, I believe, so it's okay. So as long as you're not extending past that line, yep. So that's our understanding of how that works. Obviously, this will probably be a little area that we'll see a few questions come out and be clarified as the Q&A opens up and that kind of thing. But yeah, as we understand it at the moment, those were the rules. All right, so effectively we've kind of gone through the gameplay mechanics of how the game works. That would be the end game period. The drivers would be told to stop their robots, and they'd do the scoring, and they'd sort of reset the field ready for the next game. Were there any other zones? I guess that we could probably talk about some of the common penalties and the... Yeah. Okay. So we can, so we can talk about some of the aspects that we're seeing on the field at this point. So effectively, I think we mentioned before we've got the gate. We might try and run the gate a couple of times because there's some interesting things can happen, especially if you just tap the gate open. So we'll try this. Murphy's Law says it probably. There we go. That's what happened. So what we found. Can we load that up again? That was just a quick little tap of the gate opening up, and you saw that the artifacts were fully classified, so there was a full 9 artifacts in there. So we'll load another 9 up, and this time, William, we'll get you to hold that gate for probably about maybe 3 or 4 seconds, and we'll see the different effect. So before we saw just a little tap, now we're going to hold it open for a few more seconds, and you'll see that has the impact from what we've tested to be very consistent in terms of how many artifact it releases. Which is an interesting aspect. If we consider the first scenario where one of the artifacts doesn't get released, is that considered a field fault that we know of? Will the refs care about that? Do we?
Normally, the refs won't care because it's part of the gameplay of the structure.
Excellent. So there won't be any good going to the question box and saying how our classifier only released 8 of the 9. That's not something that's going to have any merit, I guess. Yeah. Okay. All right. So another aspect that we've seen is when the artifacts come into the goal, we can see the bouncing mechanic. So can we try? This is going to be challenging as well. what we're trying to do is land an artifact kind of first up on the steel structure, because we can kind of see them potentially bounce out a little. Oh, we saw one just then kind of come out between the square. Yeah. All right. So there we go. One of them. Yeah. So it is possible, but it seems unlikely for us from our testing that the artifacts kind of come out from a bounce. What is more common, and sometimes we're trying to replicate a bit of a scenario here, and we have seen it a few times, but it's one of those random things. Essentially, when we've got 8 artifacts and we put the next one in, sometimes they just sit just a little bit more and they kind of bounce and then they roll over the top, and you have a little bit of trouble collecting that ninth artifact and getting it classified. So that's something to note. And again, that's not a field fault that you'll be able to go to the ref and make an objection over. So from our understanding at this point as well. All right. So I guess, is there any questions that anyone has at this point that you'd like us to sort of stop and spend some time on? If there is, just let us know, because we're more than happy to dive into the rules. We've got the document here which we can use to reference.
There's actually one thing to note as well, is with the goal and the April tag on it, the goal is actually printed, so there's not going to be any mistakes for when this April tag for the DECODE April tag, so that you can always track the goals. So that's something that is to be noted down, is like, for the field setup, you don't actually have to put this sticker on. It is printed onto the core flute type of material.
Yes, so that's right. We should see a lot of consistency, and that is worth pointing out. It is the material this year is core flute, but it's a reinforced thicker core flute. It is quite firm. There is supports underneath the classifier, so as we hit the core flute in this area, it will push up against the field wall. However, underneath where the depot is, there's no reinforcement under there. So yeah, I don't really want to kick it too hard, but you can kind of see that it can bow in. So that's worth noting as well. This would, like the boys said before, this is probably going to be a challenging little area to score if that's part of your strategy. Outside of that, the field is actually really, really robust. I think it's probably one of the better fields that we've seen in the last few years, to be honest. The gate seems pretty robust as well. It's a big, thick chunk of Delrin. It's held on by a particular bolt. I would like to see, I'm sure that they've tested this, but if a robot were to collect on this end point here, we might see some bent material there. But hopefully that's not gonna happen too much. Yeah. So we want to talk about, can we test I tested the ninth. Well, it depends on, the spore. Okay, spin. Okay, so what some of our people are saying is, once we're loaded up with the full classifier, it really depends on the spin of how the ball lands in there. And that's a really good point. The spin is actually a really, really good point. What we've discovered is if we end up having a little bit of backspin on the ball, so it kind of does, so backspin kind of wobbles around, like kind of sits up in the goal, and it kind of takes a little bit of time for it to get into the rails and kind of flow down. When you kind of have top spin, it kind of comes around and it kind of comes down with a little bit more velocity, and that little bit more velocity, there we go. Yes, that little bit more velocity does cause it to sort of kick up a little bit and spin down. So definitely an aspect that you should consider is that spin that you're going to impart on the ball as you on the artifact as you launch it from your robot. I think it will have a bigger impact than what you kind of think it will. So if you don't have access to a field, it's definitely worth, from our perspective, having a look at a bit more top spin than backspin. So that's the spinning that's spinning towards the goal, so that when it hits it, it kind of comes down and it does what Nick's just been trying to replicate. Yeah.
Do we want to talk about like different areas that could cause protected zones, especially throughout the match?
So this is.
So yeah. There are some, especially for this year's game, there's a lot of protected zones, not really in the launch zone, the 2 launch zones, but especially near the gate, as well as what is referred to as the secret tunnel. So if you're on the blue alliance, you start over on the other side, so you have to deal with the gate on the other side near your goal. So this is actually a protected zone. So if anyone tries to, your opposing alliance tries to descore or tries to open the gate, that's a foul. Nick, would you like to talk about the secret tunnel and those fouls?
Oh yeah, so the secret tunnel. Thank you. Secret tunnel is a little bit like, I don't know. So sort of if you look at the game rules, G425, it's keep out of opponent's secret tunnel. So in its simplest form, just don't try the best you can not to go. So if you're on the blue alliance, try your best. Say, for instance, this robot's on the blue alliance. Try not to go into the red alliance. But I think, yeah. So it only counts if it's the thing if they touch. Yeah. But the thing about the secret tunnel zone is it only counts if there's a collision between the 2 alliances. So if this is a blue robot and it comes into the red tunnel, that would be no foul currently. But if the red robot was to come over and touch the the blue one, then that's a foul to the red alliance. Yeah.
So I think that there's something that we'll certainly be asking if it's not asked by another team when the Q&A opens is, if you're a blue robot here and you're entitled to be able to open your gate, but you might have the strategy where you're opening your gate and you're trying to intake at the same time, but you're, I guess by definition, intaking into the secret tunnel from the secret tunnel, and another robot touches you. You're in the process of opening the gate and intaking from the secret tunnel. How are referees going to look at that? That's something that we'd like to see. So, but I guess what Nick and William are trying to infer is there's a big wide open space, and they've really highlighted the fact this year that robots might end up facing a fair bit of defense. So it's worth noting that I think part of the game strategy this year is really going to be a defense heavy kind of strategy for particular games and whatnot. So it's worth thinking about that when you're designing your robot, that you might want to sort of make things a little bit more robust, because out in the play here, robots are going to be trying to collect artifacts as quickly as they can, get to a launch zone, launch those artifacts. And part of that strategy is, as you're scoring, as you're trying to launch, another team might try very hard to get you outside of that launch zone so that you can't actually score. So I guess, Andrew, if we had a robot that was kind of trying to minimize its movements and it's getting very close to the launch zone, just sort of so that it's just vertically over the launch zone and it's launching, and another robot comes along and does a push while it's launching, and so effectively they've launched outside of that launch zone, what kind of penalties can we expect to see?
Well, my interpretation is that there's 2 rules being broken. One from the team launching; they launch outside of the launch zone, and the other is the team pushing. That would be them forcing another opponent to break a rule. So that would be probably either a minor foul for the other side and a major foul for the other.
So if it lands in the goal, it's the major foul. Is that right? So it could end up being a valid strategy for someone to take on. Yep.
So launching outside of the launch zone is a minor foul for launching, and where Nick is, and then scoring it is the major foul. So that would be 15. I think 20 points of fouls.
Excellent. Thanks.
Things may obviously change throughout the course of the season. So this interpretation is from day one, but for a few weeks later, the Q&A could clear up some of these confusions as well.
Yeah, that's right. So there was an update just the other day. You can talk about that. Yeah, fantastic.
So the most recent update, one of the updates was you're not allowed to launch artifacts into your opposing alliance's goal. I'm not sure the penalty, but probably most likely a minor foul. But that's the most thing of note.
That's exactly, that's a great point. So yeah, like what like Jack just said, basically you can pretty much expect the game elements to be exhausted, and when they're fully into classified cycles or getting close to the end, there's only a handful of game elements that are on the field, so that is going to create more contention.
So there is a rule in here that hoarding or removal of elements throughout the game is egregious and will result in a major foul. So if you deliberately launch the artifacts away from the goal so they come off the field, that will result in your team getting a major foul.
Yeah, so part of that strategy, you've got to play fairly. I guess that's the intent there. So the next thing that is new this year is ranking points. So one more thing, sorry. All right.
So while you can score in the depot, there is no rules against an opposing alliance from taking the elements from the depot and scoring them into their own goal. So keep that in mind, that this one has no protection at all with regards to descoring.
And if it's off the line, then it's no points as well. So it's a very difficult thing to score.
All right, excellent. Okay, now we're all happy. We're going to start talking about ranking points. So ranking points are then, yep, another question.
So does that mean when the gate opens, there'll be an opposite side waiting to pick up the balls, like blue opens for red and red waits to pick them up? And will we expect it will be the normal in the season?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, so there is. I think typically, if you want to hit that gate again, Nick, those artifacts should kind of roll down into the human player zone there by default, I guess. But games are weird. Things happen. I think the general intent when the game designers have built this game is to give a protected path for those artifacts to be able to go down into the human player zone. And I think basically the ruling is kind of designed so that another team could almost kind of move down to this area in anticipation for those artifacts to move down, and they've got a little bit of protection there. So as a robot, maybe it's a human player fed robot, they're waiting over here for the artifacts to kind of come down. That gives them good protection. Then the human player can then load them up and away they go again. So I think that's probably the intent of the design.
So one thing to note, so from previous years, the human player zone has been protected, where robots are not allowed to enter. From my interpretation of the rules, is the human player zone or the loading zone is not protected. But if a human player is introducing artifacts to their alliance's robot, the robot must be stationary. So a red can come into the blue loading zone and vice versa.
Yeah, but if they make contact, then that's when we're having problems. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to move on to ranking points. Okay. All right. So ranking points are something that we've seen in FRC before. So FTC is kind of coming along, and it's coming and looking a little bit more like FRC all the time. So essentially, let me just sort of describe what a ranking point can give us. So in previous seasons, if you won a match, you won 2 ranking points. If you drew a match, you got 1 ranking point. And if you lost, you didn't get a ranking point. So you'd play all of your qualification matches, and we'd end up having a table of all of our ranking points. Invariably, some teams might end up on an average of 2 ranking points, and the average kind of happens, and we end up getting a ranking. But invariably, a lot of teams end up all on the same ranking points, and then we start moving to the tiebreaker 1, which in previous years it's been your autonomous score. If you're still even on your autonomous score, then we'd start looking at TB2, which was typically the end game score. So those aspects are still valid, but what the game is doing and introducing now is the ability to score different number of ranking points. So it's not just for the win, the draw, or the loss. I know, yep. So basically what we can do now is get 3 ranking points for a win, 1 for the draw, and 0 for the loss. In anticipation in addition to that, we can also score a potential 3 extra ranking points for your ability to do some advanced tasks in the game. We want to talk about the first of those tasks. Maybe the easiest is the sheer number of game elements that we have to score. Yeah. Do you want to talk through the 36 or so?
Okay, So for the first ranking point for this game, the additional ranking points you can get to boost your ranking up, it's called, I'm pretty sure, the goal ranking point. So to score that, for at least at a regional event level, I think that's called, yep, you have to score 36 artifacts throughout the entire game. You have to get 36 artifacts through the square over here. Oh, I'm blocking the camera, whoopsie. Through the square. So it doesn't matter if they go classified or if they go overflow. It's just 36 pass through that hole. So that's across auto. Thank you. Auto and auto, teleop, and endgame. So yeah, that's the goal ranking point.
Excellent. So if you were to score 36 of these artifacts straight through, you would get a ranking point, which would still be applied even if you lost the game. So it's conceivable that if you did all of these three hard tasks, you've lost the game, you can still potentially walk away with 3 ranking points. The next ranking point that we'll talk about is the base or the movement. So this one's a little bit more nuanced. Do we want to have a bit of a go at this one, Rylan, as well? We can help you out with this because it's actually quite a little bit. There's a lot going on with this one, so we'll unpack this one a little bit.
So as was stated earlier, you could stack like 2 robots on top of each other. However, this isn't actually needed for the movement ranking point. You just need enough points, which is in regional is 16 points from your base, which can either be at the end of autonomous or at the end of endgame. So if your points added up from those is equal to or greater than 16 at regional, then you can get a ranking point.
Fantastic. So just to reiterate that, your points from your autonomous plus your endgame points combine to work out what your overall movement points are. So typically for regionals, if we move during autonomous, we get a set number of points. So we've moved off the launch line, 3 points. Yep. Then we can come along and we can park. Well, so we've got 2 robots that are going to do that. So that would be our points for that. We've got our robot that's going to come along and fully park in the base. And then we've got another robot that is going to partially park in the base. And since they both left at auto, and they're both here in the parking zone, that would 3 plus 3, 16. And we've gone past what we would need for our ranking points. So we haven't had to do this crazy climb where we've tried to fit 2 robots fully into this small little area, yet we've still been able to get the ranking points just because our robots have left from autonomous and we've done some clever little parking at the end of the game. So I guess what we're saying is, even if you're coming up to an event, your event's like tomorrow and you still haven't really finished what your full autos might look like, you really need to have a launching or a moving auto, even if it's just a small little move, just to get moving off the line. Something that you really need to think about. Want to have a chat? Yeah. What was that? Sorry.
Relating to
All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So our base ranking point, our movement ranking point, our goal ranking point, and the final ranking point is our pattern ranking point. So this is, yes, Nick says this is a fun one. So, all right. So remember at the beginning of the game, our obelisk has been moved to a random location, which is going to define a particular pattern. So what we're looking at is trying to get our motifs, so we're trying to get our artifacts into that motif. We get points from it at the end of auto, if we recall. So we're trying to remember what the sum of our auto points are, and then at the end of the teleop, we're also going to be scored based on our motifs or the patterns that we've put our artifacts into. And those two scores combined are going to give us a score. And if we're above the threshold for our regional event again, we would also get that pattern RP. What's the point scoring value for a typical regional pattern RP at the moment?
So from what I'm looking at, for the pattern RP at a regional event, you need 18 points collected across. So to score for each one, for each artifact that matches the motif. So for instance, let's pretend that this right now is the end of our teleop. We finished the game, and this is what our classifier looks like. If we have a look over here at what our obelisk is currently, it's showing a purple, green, purple. So with the purple, green, purple, so let's pretend I'm a scorer. I'm going to come along. I'm going to look at each set of 3. So I'll go purple, green, purple, purple, green, purple, purple, green, purple. So because every single artifact in the classifier right now matches up to the motif on the obelisk, you score 2 points for each one that's correct. So that would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So that's 18. So for a regional event, that's the pattern RP right there. However, it's important to note that that's probably going to increase. So your auto matching the motif and matching the obelisk and auto with your motifs is going to contribute as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it is worth taking some time, spending some time at the end of the game to even coordinate a little bit with your alliance partner to try and get as many of those as you can into a pattern forming. Obviously, the purples dominate. So, and like Nick mentioned, if you do get a large number of the purples, even if they're in the wrong space, you will still score quite well. So, combine this with your auto and your end game. I think it's definitely achievable as well. But yeah, that's the third ranking point. So those 3 ranking points. Something that we can help to so then after our tiebreakers, have you guys across the tiebreaker scoring at the moment? No, at the moment. So basically the tiebreakers are going to work not from autonomous score but from your overall score. So basically if you're it's going back a few years, it's very similar to what we've seen in the past. Andrew was just mentioning we used to do this back in the Ultimate Goal time frame, but that's a long time ago. So basically, just try and keep scoring. So if you don't want to take your foot off the pedal and sort of relax scoring throughout the game if you can, just keep scoring because it will help you ultimately. Some of the things I guess that we kind of noted in terms of a little bit of strategy, so it sort of seems like sorting the artifacts from auto might be a pretty powerful strategy, but that's not necessarily what we think in practice, is it? I mean, if you have an autonomous that doesn't necessarily sort the colors and sort the patterns, you can still do pretty well in this game. Would you suggest, Nick?
Yeah, totally. Because I'm just going to do a little bit of math now. So if you look at the obelisk, in every single one, there's 2 purples and a green, right? So if, for instance, your robot starts with 2 purples and a green in their robot, and they just fire them off randomly into the goal at the start of auto. If you have a look, no matter which order they score them, there's always going to be a purple in the right spot because of how the math works out, right? So yeah, so that's important. So that's just a free extra 2 points there for just scoring without even looking at the motif thing. Yeah.
Something else that is interesting is if you don't have any way of scoring those, getting the sorting, you could also start with 3 purple preloads. Because if you start with the 3 purple preloads instead of a green, you're actually guaranteed a 2 purple motif, like purples to be correct. So if you know that your alliance partner can score it, can't score it, so you could choose to go down that 3 so that you can guarantee yourself at least 2.
Definitely some strategy there to think about. One of the things that one of our drivers noted to me the other day was that since it was standing on the opposite side of where we're scoring and we're classifying, it can actually be a little bit disorienting and a little bit hard to follow the pattern of what you're trying to get. So if you're I'm standing kind of over here on the opposite side where a driver would be standing. Yep, where the blues are scoring into there. And I'm looking at the pattern and I'm going, oh, yeah, purple, green, purple, purple. But then I've kind of got to now what was my obelisk? And I'm looking over to my obelisk and I'm trying to match that pattern back again. I mean, maybe our drivers are going to get a little bit better than what I am in my old age. But to me, that's a bit of overhead and bit of thinking that might slow me down a little bit as a driver. So
the thing that you could also note to get to that to pattern RP is if you manage to score at least one spike mark randomly, you're guaranteed with the three purple preloads, and you score all purples into the goal at the end of Teleop, you'll walk away with that pattern RP as well. So if you guarantee 3 the correct motif points and in auto, and you can actually then go for all purples to make sure you get that pattern RP.
Excellent. All right. So yeah, basically, I guess we've kind of covered everything that's that is in the gameplay part. In terms of strategy, I think we've kind of let you kind of get your mind thinking about what you can possibly do in terms of that movement RP. So being able to move off auto and then parking at the end. Not necessarily the really hard gameplay of trying to get 2 robots completely into that zone. It's not something that we need to think about just yet. I'm sure it'll happen for the World Championships, but we're a long way from there. Scoring the artifacts into the goal, yep, 36 or so is going to be a challenge. Definitely early on, it's going to be a challenge, but that's something that we can all work on. We think the game's going to be a pretty fast-flowing game in terms of everyone's going to really try and get those game elements onto the field, and not mess around with them. Just try and get as many as you can into the intake and get them launched. Probably not going to see too much strategy, I wouldn't think, in the first part of the season, particularly for us here, in terms of locking artifacts up in the classifier and kind of keeping things low key. I don't think that'll happen, but you never know. I could be wrong on that. Are there any questions coming through, guys? At this point, no, I think we kind of highlighted. Andrew's just suggesting that fouls are going to be a big thing this year. The same rules apply, I guess, for pinning. You can only pin for 3 seconds or so. So pinning is obviously when we're pushing a robot up against a game or part of the field or another robot, basically blocking them from being able to move. You can only do that for a few seconds. The ref will start waving their little flag at you and pointing. So when you see that, you've got to take some evasive action. But that's been the same as it has been in previous years. But yeah, obviously, it's a bit of a challenge to try and be quite fast, but then also have a bit of a think about what your team is or your alliance is going to do at the end of endgame there. How you're going to approach scoring those patterns. And yeah, communicating once the classifier gets full, you might get to the point where there's sort of 8 artifacts in the classifier, but you know that one of your alliance can launch 3, so it might make sense to communicate to say, hey, maybe we want to release the gate and start the classification cycles again. So another interesting thing I think that we observed that's just come to me is if you are a team that's looking at sorting, the way that the artifacts land, if you've got like a rapid fire kind of shot from auto, it's definitely possible that the artifacts could come into the goal, bounce around about a little bit in a random way, and you kind of lose your order. So, if you're sort of rapid firing them in, they kind of bounce around at random. You've shot them in the right orientation or the right pattern, but yeah, they can definitely bounce around and lose that pattern. And how are we going with questions? Any questions so far, guys? No? Oh, you got the one there as well. So we'll just sort of give a few minutes just to see if anyone comes up with some questions, because I think we're pretty much covered everything that we sort of thought we'd cover in this session. Our next sessions, we've got some ideas for some prototypes and whatnot. Want to have a quick chat? Yep.
So just as a reminder, the rules for the servo limit this year have been reduced from 12 to 10. So you can only use 10 servos this year. So make sure you're not overutilizing servos.
Something else that's changed from last year to this year is the way to advance. So it's based on advancement points. So just make sure that you know about that when you're going into your competition. Let's load robotics.
Excellent. Oh, load. Load. We love load. All right. The question is, what are you thinking about for strategy with sorting for the pattern? Our team's currently thinking about whether or not we need an indexer and trying to think about what our alliance partner could potentially do. What are our team's thoughts? What are our team's thoughts? Who wants to have? You're who wants to go? You want to go? Okay.
So I think that at this stage, we want to be able to sort for those artifacts, but we also know that the timeline for, especially in Australia, is quite short. So if we don't have the time to do it, we know that the point wise you can make up, especially during teleop. So you can kind of still get the pattern RP without having to worry about sorting. So that's something that we're going to probably heavily consider if we run out of time. But at this stage, we're thinking of some sort of spin dexter as well.
So I guess, Nick, would you lean on your robot's design? Would you rather have something that can sort really consistently or score 2 times faster than what you like? Would you take 2 times or even 1.5 times slower scoring to have a sorter, or would you rather go straight with something that can score?
That is a very good question. So, personally, I think it would be more worth it to have the faster shooter. Oh, it's launcher, sorry. At the end of because the only reason you'd need the color sorter is for the end of auto and the end of the match to get the pattern up. However, if you just fire purples in auto, if you fire fill up the thing in auto, classify in auto, you get guaranteed at least 3 if there's random configurations of purple, green, purple, and then you just score purples for the end of the match, and that scores it anyway. So, and I think the faster launcher would actually be better for the goal ranking point.
Fantastic. So one of the things that is different from this year to previous years is the scoring of auto. So previously you would score your points at the end of auto, and then they get scored at the end of teleop again, or during teleop. So they kind of effectively look like they doubled. That doesn't happen this time because of the classification that happens at the end of auto, and then it gets classified at the end of teleop again. I mean, those points don't kind of have that compounding effect like they have in the previous years. So if you're very good at sorting and you've sorted everything and you've got some really good auto points, you might be ahead, maybe even up to 10 points ahead at the end of auto, but those 10 points can quickly erode if the teleop period is very slow. So my advice would be very similar to Nick's, is I wouldn't compromise on your shooting ability just to give some sorting and some indexing abilities would be my advice as well. You had a comment, Andrew?
Well, with regards to how we will want to do it, it really depends on how, with teams wanting to sort out their artifacts. I would recommend looking at FRC games in the past. A lot of teams used spindexes and hooded turrets. So using past FRC games like Infinite Recharge would be helpful for your development of your robot.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that when we do some of our prototypes. But yeah, that whole spindexer concept is a little bit foreign to FTC. But the idea is to basically rotate the artifacts inside the robot as they come in, so that they get put into predefined spots. When they're in a predefined spot, you can assess them for what their color is, and then you can eject them based off that. That's the thinking. So let's have a bit of a look. What do we got? Will it be more risky to be pushed away when the robot's shooting from the small launch area? Yeah, that's absolutely a good point. So basically what our commentary is suggesting is defense is very heavy, going to be very heavy in this game. So if you're down the back of the field in this small little area trying to take some shots, you're a prime target there for another robot to come along and push you out and descore you. Well, not descore you, but help you miss your shots. But not only that, try and get you to potentially score outside of that launch area, which is definitely something our drivers are going to have to think about this year. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Good questions. What do we think our? I mean, I know I have an opinion of this game. What do you think, Nick? You've seen a few FTC games in your time.
So, as this is my second season, but I'm not very well versed in FTC games, but I've looked back, and I do think this is probably my favorite FTC game of all time. It's been so long since we've had a launcher game, and it's just so fun, and there's so much strategy involved, and it's just really great. Yeah.
What about you, Rylan?
Yeah, this definitely looks like a more fun season than maybe Into the Deep.
Yeah, maybe. What do you think, William?
I think it compares to the strategy of power play and center stage, where you had to worry about the circuits and the mosaics, and the fact that there was alliance interaction. I think that's really was lacking, especially with Into the Deep. The fact that you went from straight to the submersible and to the high baskets. So that aspect of it was kind of not as strong. But I think this year it's gone back to the strategy and interaction with the opposing alliances.
Andrew, you're around in the Skystone Ultimate Goal days. What are your thoughts on this game?
Probably the best game from like recent games, with the ranking points of the strategy, the all of the challenges, removing of the extension limit really makes everyone think differently, making the games a whole lot more fun to see.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I guess I've been involved in First for nearly 10 years, going all the way back before Skystone, looking at Rover Ruckus and Relic Recovery and whatnot. So I reckon this is probably the best game that I've seen so far. I think it has a good balance of strategy. It has a good balance of technical, I guess, mastery. So in terms of what we can learn, some new skills. It's not just out and up again, which is great. So there's some new things that we can learn from a control perspective, which I think is going to be great for the team. But yeah, also I think one of the biggest things is I think that it's actually approachable for any team level. I mean, I think you're going to see some teams that are going to have human players human player loading robots that are going to be absolutely insane this year. And I think if you've got a drive team that's just ferocious and can go after the artifacts and really just get the scoring done, I think we're going to see some really great games and some really great outcomes. And I think we might see some teams at the end of the year at the World Championships that are in high positions that we might not have seen from other points in time. So I guess I'm saying Romanians should watch out, because I think that this is really going to be an open season for people to do some really cool things. So if there's no more questions, I'll give you another minute, and then we might wrap things up. I just want to personally thank everyone for turning up and supporting us on this this workshop. I know the boys have put a lot of effort into trying to make this happen. We had some delays getting our field shipped here. We want to thank
We want to thank 26716, I think.
the Techno Turtles from St. Laurie's. They've lent us their field for today. Absolutely amazing that they could do that. We thank them heaps. And we want to thank everyone from, I'm sure it's usually us getting up in the middle of the night to talk. We're in the nice morning, and I'm sure it's the middle of your night in a lot of your different areas. So thank you very much for spending some time with us this morning. I'll hand it around for the final remarks, and then we'll close it out.
Thank you very much again for showing up, and hopefully you've learned some interesting things about the game, or maybe just clarified some things that you were thinking about. So hopefully it helped, and hopefully you can also join the next few workshops that we plan on running.
Thank you for the support. Thanks for turning up. If maybe look at turning up if we run any future workshops as well.
Thanks for rocking up. See you guys in the future. Good luck with the season.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to watch and participate in our workshop. We really appreciate it.
And the boys behind the camera give me a thumbs up as well. So thank you very much. And we'll see you next time if you come back, and we'll talk about some of the prototyping and whatnot that we've got. So thanks.